Hey guys, this is Dinah Michelle, and you're watching 3Count Podcast.
Welcome everybody to another great edition of the 3Count Podcast presents Now Entering the Ring. I'm your host, Clifford Red Dog Miller, and as always, when you work for free 99 and you have hot dogs and a handshake, and people don't want to work for hot dogs, or you run out of them, and people don't want a handshake because of COVID. It's just you and it's just me, but that's okay. It is our thing. So let's keep it moving. But this is Now Entering the Ring, which means one thing: we have a special guest just for you. And this man, you can find him on Nerds of Wrestling podcast. He has another podcast called What Up Wrestler, which I'm not gonna lie, I'm very much a huge fan of. So let's bring him in and welcome the host, Justin Del Rio.
I'm quite jealous that you could roll your R's. I can't do that.
Come on, man. Like,
I know I'm Puerto Rican. I can't even do it. Like,
yeah.
what the
hell? So, I mean, we've had you on our Greatest Wrestler of All Time podcast. Yep. We also had you on just like a random episode. I think it was like right after WrestleMania.
Yeah.
With us. And then normally our podcasts don't go like over an hour long, but like the two that you were part with us, man, it was like
3 hours. Yeah, it was nuts.
It was a marathon. I was like, yo, man, at one time I was like, this is taking like way too long. Like,
It was lit. It was so much fun though. I remember I had my iPad, and that's how I was talking to you guys. My iPad was at 100% at the start, and then near the end it was like at like 17. I was like, oh my god, I'm not even almost done. I gotta charge this.
Yeah. I remember I was like, dang, dude. I was like, and I remember like, because like once you hit like the hour and a half mark, it's like, all right, now you're like you're in the stretch where you're really like kind of getting tired, and you're like, dang. But then like you have other voices that you have to listen to, and I'm just like, bro, this takes way too long.
Right? And you're just like, yeah, keep going.
Yeah. Because like even you, like for What Up Wrestler, like your interviews go like anywhere from like 45 to an hour long, right?
Yeah, it all depends, man. It all depends on the guest. If they're talking and they're giving good feedback, then we're gonna talk for an hour. But if you're just giving me very bland answers, it's gonna be like 25 minutes. And I have uploaded podcasts that were 25 minutes. And quite honestly, I hate to be a dick, but those type of interviews were a waste of time. That's just me, I mean, I know the wrestlers are busy, so and so, but like, come on, talk, give me more. I'm interviewing you. Like, you should have so much more to say. I know you're nervous, but just keep talking. Just roll out that story,
Yeah, I love having conversations. And like, well, with our podcast, it's kind of different because like we're Now Entering the Ring, like the whole idea is like it's a wrestling podcast by wrestlers for wrestlers, right. Kind of like to navigate through the business as you get into your first couple of years. So we tell everybody all the time, like, hey, yo, like pop on and hang out with us. This interview is kind of different because you've obviously been a fan of the business for such a long time, but then like getting in, how did you even get started with like wanting to start up a podcast?
Honestly, man, it was something that I've thought about for such a long time. For those who are listening, they know I started the discussion thread first, and I felt like it was such a huge success after the first night. The first guest was a wrestler you guys know, BRG, Brett Ryan Gosselin, and that discussion thread ran for like 2 or 3 hours. He was getting so many questions, and I'm like, damn, like, what if I do a podcast? Like, this is really cool, but like a podcast would be so much better, but that was just in thought. I thought about it more. I was like, I don't know. And then like the weeks were flying by. I saw an app called Anchor. Somebody shared something on Nerds of Wrestling, their podcast, and Anchor, and all it said was free. I'm like, the easiest way to make a podcast. I'm like, huh. All right, let me download Anchor. Let me see what it's all about. So I downloaded that app, Anchor, literally the first night. I made an account. I announced, hey, I'm gonna start up a podcast. First person I messaged right away to be a guest was BRG. He said absolutely. He said yes without a question, without a doubt. And fast forward about 2 weeks after that, I started doing a podcast. With BRG. That was the first one. For those of you who did listen, I was extremely nervous. I was like, pausing a lot, asking questions, pausing a lot midway, like saying, that, this and that. And it happens, No podcast is perfect. That's what I always tell people. But yeah, it just became such a big thing in 2020. And obviously, for those who are listening, for you, Clifford, I interviewed so many wrestlers last year. I took advantage of the time that we were living in, and it showed. And it quite honestly wore me out. But I'm ready to go, and I'm ready to start season 2 of What's Up Wrestler.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I know you have season 2 coming out. It's exciting.
Yeah,
And it's funny because so the way where our podcast got started, I mean, you've kind of seen like the way it kind of blossomed. It was just like, I remember in October of I think it was 2019, Chaz came to me and was like, hey, I want to do a podcast, but I want it to be like any other podcast. I want it to be like a roundabout discussion where we just like talk to people about like opinions and stuff like that. And I was like, all right, bet. So let's do it. And then I actually left the podcast that I was with at the time, which was Franken Culture Presents Frankensteiner. I left and I went and started really doing this whole thing. And then we kicked it up. And next thing you know, like we brought you on, and then we found out about What a Wrestler with you. And I was like, yo, I want to do a podcast like that where you just interview wrestlers. And so it was your podcast is what inspired us to do that. I don't know
oh,
if I
look at that.
told you
That's
that.
awesome. No, I didn't know that. Thank
Yeah.
you. It's crazy. It feels good to hear like, hey, I was an inspiration to somebody. If we're talking about inspirations, Big Bacon, Brad Hollister, what's his one? He was an inspiration to me. He was interviewing wrestlers. I was like, I really want to do that. And so he was my inspiration. And so shout out to Big Bacon for, being the inspiration that really started my podcast.
Yeah, I'm still trying to get him on the show. That's gonna happen eventually. Like eventually. But it's funny because
Eventually.
you mentioned the pandemic, right? Like that was the thing. Like
Right.
we're sitting around here and we're not doing anything. And it's like, yo, you're right. Like I remember like watching you like upload episode after episode after episode.
Yeah.
I was like, dang, dude, like that the kid's putting in work while like just sitting at home in the pandemic. I was like, that makes sense. And so for me, like we went through and our first guest, right, was Big Trouble Ben Bishop, which he's a phenomenal dude just to begin with. I'm just gonna put Ben out there and I'll put him over every time I get a chance to. But he came on the show. We just started asking questions, just randomly for like an hour long. And then we brought on Sickened after that. And then James Ellsworth came on, and we were so excited because after that, Studio 22, and then there were so many other people that were coming on board. And so we were like, cool. But it was really watching you, and all of a sudden I was like, I remember seeing you at like episode 1 with BRG, and then also you're like at episode 47. I was like, yo, this man has got all the episodes.
Yo, it's nuts. I had the idea one weekend where I was like, I'm gonna upload 4 bonus episodes. Because I had the whole thing played out where I'm like I think it was episode, I forgot, like 18 or something. I was like, okay, no more regular episodes. They're just gonna be bonus episodes. They're gonna be 4. Bro, that turned into 20.
Yeah.
That turned into 20 bonus episodes. For those who are listening, if you look at my episodes, it's like episode 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way like to 20 or whatever. Then it's like 20 bonus episodes. Then it goes up to like, regular. So I really did work myself out. I wore myself out. I'm not gonna lie. A lot of people were like, "Hey, man, you should, kind of dial it down." I'm like, "No, I'm taking advantage of the time. That's what you need to do." Like, you're not. I wasn't doing anything. I was literally staying at home doing nothing. Drinking soda, eating junk food, messaging wrestlers galore, like getting the days worked out. It was like to the point where I was doing 3, 4 episodes a day.
Yeah.
And I could have spaced them out better, after looking at it, but I'm a very OCD kind of person. I don't like all this stuff just cluttered in my iPad. I'd rather just type it, name the episode, upload it. That's it. Out of sight, out of mind. I can't delete it out of the archives, but it's there, named, everything's all organized. It's out in the open. So
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. That's like one of my problems too, is that like, I think it was like it was like between July to August. I think at one time I know I doubled up like at least 2 or 3 days a week with episodes. And like eventually we ended up interviewing TJP. And that was our 50th episode. But that episode, we interviewed him in August, and it didn't come out till October.
oh my god, oh shit,
Yeah.
damn.
And we were just having so much fun because we were like, it's like every day a new wrestler was coming on. And
Right.
actually, to be fair, like on the day that we're recording this, I just did an interview at 3 p.m. with a person, and I was like, "Hey, yo, like, I got Justin is gonna be on the show. Like, we got him." And then, like, for the rest of the week, I have interviews planned out. Like, and
Right.
it's funny, like, hearing you do it too, because, like, for me, I do it for the advice side, right? Because, like, obviously, we've talked about this before. Like, I'm getting into my career, my pro wrestling career. I'm in my first year. Like, now, I just had my first year anniversary of training, and so it's like, all right, cool, like I'm going to keep hitting up people and then asking advice. And we've had like a lot of cross platforms with you and I between guests, because like
Yeah.
whether it's BRG, Willie Finesse, Gabby Ortiz,
Little Mean Kathleen.
Little Mean
Yeah.
Kathleen, we've had so much crossover. It's been hilarious to like see that. Yeah, it's been like wild to like use some of the connections that you have, and I'm sure you probably used a couple of guys that we've like sent you.
Yeah, a few. I'm sure. You know, the thing about independent wrestling, you know, this is like there's so many wrestlers. Like for non-wrestling fans, when I tell you, like, there's so many wrestling, and if you're thinking about starting up a podcast, you know, like, yeah, hit me up, hit up Clifford, hit up someone who's doing podcasts, but also don't be afraid to branch out because there are so many wrestlers out there who I'm sure won't mind going on a podcast to get their story out there because you never know what that story is going to do for that person.
Exactly. That's like, I mean, and you look at, okay, so you can look at something like WWE, right? So like for us, I'll tell you like just straight up, and for our viewers listening, this is 107th episode that we've interviewed. Like you are number 107.
Oh, no,
Like,
like look at that. Awesome.
what? Like that's what I'm saying. But if you think about
Yes.
like WWE itself has 205 in the roster at any given time, right?
Yeah.
AEW, I think it's close to like 70, I think, if I remember
Right.
right. So you just think about those two organizations alone is like 280 wrestlers, but we're not even talking about the indie scene. We're just talking about those
Wow.
two promotions.
Exactly.
So like yeah, and I've gone out and reached out to people from Reality of Wrestling, which is where Booker T is at. I've gone out and reached out to Northeast Wrestling. I've gone out to GCW, both Game Changer and Generation Championship. So yeah, I can definitely relate. Like as far as like branching out as far as possible, like we have a couple wrestlers who when this comes out, like we'll have already interviewed them, but they're from Vegas, and
Nice.
two of the guys, people know them. Like Cutthroat Cody is going to be coming on the show. We've had him already scheduled. We have Santana Jackson coming on the show, which by the means, Santana Jackson, like Loki, I'm super hyped about about coming on the show.
That's incredible. Yeah, like it's like you know, like so many wrestlers, and you just named five, like 4 or 5 promotions. There's so much more, and there's also if you really want to branch out your podcast and get your name out there, hit up people in other countries. I'm sure other people out there will love to be on a podcast that's based off in America. Like, hey, because that's getting their name out there in a different country, so that could possibly do something for them.
Yeah, I know. I'm like that's the one thing I can't wait for. Like that moment that we get that first international guest. That's
Right.
what's the craziest part is that like all of our wrestlers that we've had on, I think the farthest away was Hawaii. Like,
That's
but
pretty
they
cool.
just, I mean, they're from Hawaii, but they happen to be living in Arizona. Which
Yeah.
shout outs to Gino for coming on our show.
Yeah, he's
Which is
dude,
another guest that you had.
great. He's so dude. He was so much fun. I think that was episode 20, and so like, and also like another thing on my podcast is like, there's times where I'm gonna be honest, I don't want to do the episode because I'm just so worn out from other podcasts I did throughout the day. Mentioned before, I wore myself out, but you're gonna get that one person who you never expect to be phenomenal. Like Gino, such a good dude. I think I was playing and talking to her for literally 35 minutes. We went almost in like over an hour. And that just goes to show like guests who want to do the podcast, guests who are willing to talk for, an X amount of time. And those are the best kind of guests you could get on your podcast.
Yeah, definitely. And like, for like me, like what people don't know is like we'll legit have a conversation like 5-10 minutes before the podcast launch. Then we'll record and we
Right.
do like 35 minutes. But what people don't know is what happens after the podcast. We're talking like 45 to an hour and a half of just having a conversation about whatever, man. It's so cool. Like I genuinely get excited to talk to people. And there's a lot more great content there.
Yeah.
But because I don't want to put it out there, like I can legit ask questions and just take massive notes. And I know I get like a lot of good notes from people like post everything
Right.
because, you know, we want to talk about like, hey, what was your time like when you got in your first year? What advice would you give? Obviously, kind of those kind of questions. But then like after the podcast, I'm all like, yo, who's your favorite superhero?
Those are always fun. Those are always fun questions to ask, like during the podcast too. Just like throw them up because it does not have to be all about wrestling.
Mm-mm.
What another one of my favorite guests. Shout out to Kennedy Copeland. I 100% recommend Kennedy. She is such a sweetheart, such an amazing human. I love her to death. She by far was my favorite interview. I interviewed, like I said, over 75. If I had to pick those two, it would be Gino and Kennedy. Shout out to everyone else. I love all my other interviewees. You guys are fucking phenomenal. You guys are so cool. But Gino and Kennedy were fantastic.
That's awesome though, man. And like I know it's hard for me to like pick because what ends up happening with me is that like I continue to build on these relationships that we start. And like one of my favorite guests, Prince Shango, like I know his character doesn't talk, but Adrian behind the scenes is one of the funniest dudes I've ever met. And we low key like have great conversations afterwards. Or like I still talk to Gina on the backside, just like, hey yo, what's up? Like send advice, get stuff back and forth. Xander Gold was another person that we had on the show. Like he was awesome just to sit back and talk to him. And I know like there's a bunch of other names in there that I'm forgetting, but
Right. Same here. I'm sure I just named those two, my two favorite ones off the top of my head, because those are two of the ones I talked about the most. When I show people my podcast, I show them Kennedy and Gino because at that time I was kind of like really getting in the groove of things, like,
mhm.
really like starting to do really good. My other ones, like I said, with BRG, BRG was awesome, but I felt like I did an absolutely terrible job at that interview. I thought I did so bad. I'm listening to it over. I'm like, damn, I really should have said this after he said this because that could have went on for like 5 to 6 minutes and added to the podcast. It's not, I'm sure you think like, damn, I should have said that. Damn, I should have asked that. Like, what the hell? Like, God darn it, it's a lot.
Yeah, that was the one thing about our podcast that kind of opened my eyes, right? Is we started off our podcast, like I said, just kind of like, hey, let's just BS with some wrestlers and see what happens. And then all of a sudden, like the more like it got targeted, we started realizing like where we were heading and what direction that we really wanted to go. And I was like, this is this is something that's be great. Like we can
Right.
low key just have a conversation with people and just have fun. And but like we still have like the 10 count questions that legitimately just like fire off the top of the whim, and people are like, whoa, what? I didn't expect this. And I was like, yeah, because after the podcast we were like, yo, that's like I've never had that done before, like this is so much fun. And I was like, oh well, yeah, we only have 10. Yeah, we can.
You only have 10. It kind of makes sense if you think about it. 10
Yeah.
sometimes. No, I like that. I like that though. How you guys have those 10 questions right off the bat. So kudos to you for
Yeah,
that.
and then I guess for like me another question like what I was gonna ask you was just like as far as like the marketing side goes, right? Like how have you seen like the success grow either based like on the thread or how you've been able to do your thing, just like on the podcast side?
Honestly, it sucks to say. Like, I try so hard to, for the discussion thread for Nerds of Wrestling, for this and that. I love my fans. I hate to say my fans like I'm fucking famous. I
Yeah.
love my members. I love my members. Nerds of Wrestling is such a fun group. I try so hard every day to go on it and try to do things differently, but it's a lot of work, man. To be honest, I'm gonna be very blunt. It's like I work in a preschool. I'm a preschool teacher, and I work 8 hours a day. When I come home, I want to go on Nerds of Wrestling, have fun, and talk wrestling. But you've seen comments on there. It's like a bunch of preschoolers like fighting back and forth, like calling people names, like crying over someone's opinion, this and that. I'm like, bro, are you kidding me? It is 2021. Who cares what they think about? If they think Drew McIntyre is the greatest wrestler on this God-given planet, let them think that. I don't think that, but I'm not gonna bash your opinion because you think that. Who cares? It's his opinion. Let it be. I love Roman Reigns. I think he's doing a fantastic job. Johnny, on the other hand, could say, I don't like him. I like F you for your opinion. All right, that's on you. But answering your question, sorry I went off topic there. It's like back and forth, people say like, oh, I support Nerds of Wrestling, I support What's Up Wrestler, but I feel like sometimes they don't show it. as
Mhm.
much as I want them to. And that sucks because I work very hard to I work very hard on this page. I worked my ass off to get the season 2 ready. I know I haven't said much. That's just because I'm keeping it a surprise. I don't want to keep. I don't want to. Like give too much away because I don't want to have people get bored and go, okay,
Right.
because if I announce one thing, I'm gonna announce it 25 times over and over again. So I'm like, let me keep it a surprise. I already have the date picked out and my guest for season 1. For those of you who are listening, this episode will be out by then. But yeah, it's. I think I'll just tell you. So the first date is February 4th, 2021. The date is the guest is confirmed. I'm just waiting for her confirmation to give me the thumbs up. But I already have a guest. For those of you who are listening, you already know. But February 4th, 2021 will be the first episode of What's Up Wrestler season 2.
That's awesome though. I mean, so it's funny, man, because like we started up a second show. So like nerds are now that now entering the ring is our baby, right? I
Right.
mean, we have the Three Count Podcast debate show. We have now entered the ring, and we did our test episode with returning to the ring, which is what we call like, that's going to be our live one.
Right.
And then we had our first guest actually on, which was Big Trouble Ben Bishop, and it went live. But the problem is the website crashed, and so
Oh.
we so we had to record that and then put it out afterwards. But then we have actually, so we were supposed to have, and by the time this comes out, there's been some events. Obviously, I don't know if anybody is aware, but the president Trump is not the president. He got voted out, and Biden is taking office. So one of our guests who was supposed to be on the 20th had to cancel because of protests.
Oh
So
God.
so that's
Jesus.
fine. But the next week, and I know this episode will be out after it happens. Basic Becca is actually coming on and is going to be our person for January 27th.
Basic
So
Becca is amazing. I absolutely love her. She is killing it with the whole scrunchie thing. I don't know if you've been
yeah,
seeing it all over social media. She's cracking me up. So shout out to Basic Becca because she's killing it with that and her wrestling. I know she's been getting booked everywhere, bro. I know she was wrestling doing her thing at Limitless. She made her debut at Northeast Wrestling, which is absolutely fantastic. It sucks it couldn't happen in front of an audience because I would have popped like hardcore if I saw Basic Becca, wrestle in person. And I know if I'm not mistaken, I know she's doing her thing at Chaotic too.
yeah, so it was funny because I found her. I found a match with her on with Limitless on
Right.
IWTV, and I was actually at my trainer's house, and he wanted to watch like the show. So I was like, "Yeah," I was like, "Put that Limitless one on," and he was like, "Why?" I was like, "Just put it on." And then the Prestige was on, so
Yeah.
I was like, I knew who that is, and then I saw Becca, and my trainer, he was just like, "Who's that?" I was like, "Hold on a second," and I was like, "Hey, okay, Key," which is the nickname for my daughter. She comes over, she's like, "Yeah, Dad." And I was like, "Hey, yo, check out who's on the show," and she goes, "Basic Becca," and I was like,
There you
"Yeah."
go. There you go. Who was she wrestling at? I know she wrestled AG. Anthony Green at the his name was at the time, who
Yeah,
is now August Gray. She wrestled Anthony Green at Limit Dojo something Limitless at the Dojo or something Pandemic at the Dojo I think.
yeah, I forget who she was wrestling. She got drop kicked into a turn into the post, to middle post.
Was
Um,
it was it Davy Ann?
maybe I can't
Maybe.
remember.
Yeah, I
But
don't
I
know.
just
She
remember,
she she wrestles so many people, bro. Like that's another, that's something that I give so much credit to these wrestlers, taking advantage, like you said, take advantage of the time. Yeah, you can't wrestle in front of crowds, but hey, go to shows if they're recording because it's gonna help in the long run.
yeah, there was actually a lot of people I noticed in behind the scenes too, and I was like, oh, I've had that person on the show. I've had that person on
Yeah,
the show. I've had
same. I'm
that
like, oh
person.
shit, I had him, I had him, I had him, I had him, I had him,
Yeah,
I had all them. It's lit.
and it's cool too because like I like picking the brains of like everybody that's been
Right.
like on different shows. Like another person that we had on that, by the way, we had a full in-depth interview. It was like a 2-hour podcast, and if you don't get a chance to go listen to it, you need to. But we had Prolificon and Tyree Taylor actually, he was running the skits with Basic Becca. It's kind of a fun way to transition.
Right.
Like those guys, so much great knowledge being passed down about everything that's going on in the business, what you want to do, how you want to avoid pitfalls. It was one of those things that we just genuinely had a great time with. And it was like myself and Chaz and Chris Idol was on there. And we had a ball with all those dudes. And like I said, we got so much information out of it. And that's why I want this kind of show, because I think like going to you and asking you like, hey, how's the marketing side going for you? Oh, it's
Right.
going like this. This is how we're doing it. Cool. Bet. This is how we're doing it. Right. So we get guys all the time who like, and I think you've seen it too, where like on the intros, just for every single episode, we have a guest do the intro for us. Like, hey,
Yeah.
like,
I mean, that's the best way to do it. You know, that's that. I do the same thing. I thought it's funny because I always think of my, I don't want to say genius, but good ideas at work. I thought about the wrestlers doing an intro at work. I thought about the discussion thread at work. Literally on my lunch break, I'm like, I have so many wrestlers on Nerds of Wrestling, and they're interacting with the fans when they post something. What if I do like a Q&A with the wrestler every single week, and they could fans could ask questions, wrestler could answer. And like I said in the beginning, BRG was the first one to do it, and fast forward, he was the first podcast.
yeah. And that's what I was, and that's like the like best way to be following. And that's why we've kind of been following your kind of lead. It's
Right.
not even be fun. As far as now into ring goes, but it's just crazy to just think about like how much joy like you get out of doing this. Cause like I know every week, like I bring on like a different wrestler, or even every other day. Sorry guys, I bring on like a different wrestler, and I genuinely pop every time I see them, because I'm like, yo, like this is a person who's taking time out of the day to give me some information that I can actually give
Right.
to everybody else. And I tell wrestlers all the time, I was like, if you don't know something, go listen to our podcast, because somebody's probably talked about the exact thing that you're looking for. And I always end up like writing down like a lot of advice, because like I always ask the question like, what advice would you give to up and coming wrestlers? And I go through and I jot that stuff down. And in my note, I have a book. It's a purple Joker book that legitimately has notes from everybody that says
Yeah.
like, hey, go this route, do this thing, try this one, or do that thing, or make sure you find something that works for your character. Like, it's
Right.
just so crazy. And I'm like, the way you get this information, I was like, normally you have to pay for a seminar, which is, you run 25,
Yeah.
$30 as well just to get into a seminar. And here you are, like, this is just information that's just being given to you, and take advantage.
I think the best advice that a wrestler has given someone, I heard it before, but this is the first time I heard it was from BRG. He said, "Don't be afraid to go to other shows. Help out. Even if you're not booked, just go because it help out because it's gonna get your name out there in the long run." Another thing I heard was, if you're not booked at a show, like BRG said, go help out or just go hang out. Bring your gear because you never know if you're gonna be needed.
Yeah, and that's always the one I hear first, is always bring your
Bring
gear.
yeah. Don't be like the Undertaker. Remember the if you guys saw the documentary of the Taker, he forgot his gear. He had to go all the way home to come back the next night to choke slam Elias. And Vince McMahon was ripping him a new one. That was so
Um,
funny.
yeah, even Michelle McCool was like, "What are you doing, rookie? Always bring your gear."
Yeah, honestly, like how do you forget your gear?
But it's cool, like, and it's funny because like that's such a great thing, right? Well, always bring your gear. And then the
Right.
other one I really love hearing a lot: eyes open, ears open, mouth shut.
Yeah.
Like, that's my favorite other piece of advice, because I'll low key just sit back and like people will be talking, like I'll put behind the scenes. I don't care. I'll just talk about a match, and we'll be talking about like how things can be run, what we got going on, and I'll be looking at everybody else, and I'll be taking notes about what we're gonna do. But I'm looking at other people. I'm just like, all right, they're doing this, all right, that, and this is why by the time like I'm calmed down and I'm like reviewing the match in my mind and seeing what I'm gonna do and try to accomplish, I'm like, all right, so don't do this, don't do that, do this, don't do that, like talk to this person,
Right.
and my trainer knew it too. Like the moment I walked in, like I was mad nervous in my first meeting, and he was like, hey, first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go in, you're gonna shake hands with the promoter, you're gonna tell him thank you for bringing you, thank you for the opportunity. All right, bet. I was injured. That's the first thing I did.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
you got to do that, man.
And
That's
then
incredible, though. That's absolutely incredible.
yeah, and then the next week, or the next, was a month later, a month and a half later, like going back to the promotion, same dude was waiting for me, and he was just like, "Hey, he's like, hey, Cliff," and I was like, "What's up?" And then like we just had a discussion. He was like, and the first thing, and this was something else I had learned, and this was crazy. So this was something that wasn't taught to me, but something that I learned through the podcast was, before you ever get into a ring, right? ask the promoter first if you can get into the ring. That was something I just didn't know. And so hearing that, like I walked up, I saw his name was Keith. He runs SCWA. I walked up, I shook hands with him. Hey, thank you for bringing me back. He's like, yeah, no doubt. I was like, it's nice to meet you. I was like, hey, can I get in the ring? And he was like, yeah. And so like hopped up, wiped my feet, jumped in the ring, hit the ropes. And then he was just like, but it was just something like after I said it, he looked at me and I was just like, what did I do wrong?
Yeah, he's like, why? He's probably thinking like, okay, yeah, sure, go do your thing, bro.
That's what you're supposed to do. Get in the ring, kid. But then even like after the show, this was something else that I wanted to be known. Like he had his own team that was tearing down the ring, and here I am like topping up with the skirt, like folding it up, giving it to people and stuff. Because I was like, yo, genuinely, like this is a lot of work. I do this all the time over at my trainer's house. It's like just makes sense. Like many hands make light loads, and I get it, guys. I'm gonna help you guys as much as possible. So
yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
But man, like another question I really wanted to run by you, dude, is like at what moment did you realize like the podcast and the threads were like just exploding?
Oof. So I feel like the I genuinely feel like the podcast. Okay, so let me start from the beginning. I feel like the discussion thread exploded after the first one, only because I feel like Nerds of Wrestling was such a hot group and everybody loved to interact on there, to do this and that. Cause I always go on there. I come home, I go on my computer. What can I do on Nerds of Wrestling? So I feel like discussion thread kind of exploded on its own just without me even trying because, well, to be honest, like I said, Nerds of Wrestling was such a hot group and I was doing so much on there. So I was like, hey, every single week, new wrestler, ask questions. And obviously it stopped for a while just because I got so busy. I got so tired with work and everything. So I had a lot to do. But I really feel like the podcast was exploding during the pandemic, like because I was taking, like I said, I was taking advantage of the time. I was interviewing so many people. I was also interviewing people who the wrestlers knew. Okay, so I was interviewing Alec Price. Alec Price knew BRG. So I interviewed Alec Price, Waves and Curls, Little Me Kathleen, Swilly O'Brien. I interviewed all them in such a big circle. They were all sharing it, and I feel like it was exploding on its own. So I feel like maybe like from like literally from April to like July, the podcast was exploding. But like, no, not July. I would say like April to like May within that month because I stopped for a while in June. So I feel like just within that month, it was exploding on its own.
Yeah, that's interesting too because I know like I remember like seeing all the interviews come through and I just remember seeing like I think it felt like there was like every other day like a brand new episode was coming out and I was like I remember texting you on the side and was just like, hey man, like because I think you had like 4 or 5 like in a week come out and I was like, yo, try to put these out. And this is what's funny.
You told me, hey, you want.
Yeah, this is what's funny about it though, right? Is I told you, I was like, yo, you got so many great episodes. Just make them come out like on a Tuesday, Wednesday. And then in the month of October, what did I end up doing? I put out a new episode like every single day. And I was like, I'm totally doing the wrong thing here. I know I'm not supposed to be doing this. But that in December, I put out like all the episodes that we had banked up because I was like, I want you guys to enjoy all this stuff like Halloween and Christmas are my favorite holidays. And you guys can enjoy it too here.
Right. I kind of feel like I said I'm very OCD, so I'm very, very like I don't like clutter. Even on my iPad and my phone, I delete photos I don't need. I delete messages I don't need. I'm very clean. So just for me to have all those episodes in my folder, I knew they were gonna get lost. I knew I was gonna forget one. Like, oh, what's up, wrestler? Episode 47. What's up, wrestler 49? Yo, where's 48? Like, what are you doing? Like, come on. But it's a lot. So I didn't mind uploading them all at once because I felt like I needed to just to keep the momentum rolling and keeping the hype going.
Yeah, no, I understand that too because I know like for me, I went back like I have an Excel sheet that legit tells me like who's been on and what episodes are what. And I remember Chaz was like, dude, you do a lot of stuff. And I was like, I know, man, but if I don't keep track of it, I'm going to look back and I'm be like, where did it go and what happened to it? So, yeah, exactly. Very much. I feel you when you talk about like the OCD side of you, like just, I need this right now. So I'm going to go get it.
Right. No, exactly. Like, I mean, like people people said you didn't have to upload them all at once, but again, yeah, yes, I did because I wanted to. You know, I really wanted to because people were looking forward to the episodes. I think the only episode I didn't upload straight away was Anthony Green, CJ Cruz, and Notorious Mimi, just because like I was too lazy. I didn't want to edit. I was gonna wait. But Anthony Green, I knew that was like a big episode for me. So I'm like, nah, I'm gonna wait like 3 days to upload this one because this is a big episode for me.
Yeah, especially because like you said, Austin Gray now over in WWE, like that was such a big
Right.
get for you too. Like I know, and it's funny how like you get those guys who are like, yeah, I'll come be on your podcast, and then like they're like, hey, I have to cancel, and you're just like, oh yeah, that's cool, and then like so you know why after that because you're like, we know why you're canceling.
Yeah.
It's no diss to us because like by all means like they're like I'm excited to be on your show, I want to come on your show, but something came
But
up and they couldn't
obligations,
get out.
it
Yeah,
happens. I get it. A couple episodes that were not never happened where I was supposed to interview Alex Zane, the Sauce God, Alex Zane. I know he signed with WWE. I was supposed to interview who else was I supposed to interview? Uh, I forget. Like there's like 6 people who I was supposed to interview, just never happened. Alex Zane, I'm very upset. I wasn't that episode didn't happen because I felt like that could have been big.
yeah. And that was that was a big one too because I know like for you you were excited. We talked about that one too. You were like, yeah, I'm super excited
Right.
to get him on the show. Like
Yeah.
come in and then like obviously like he signed that
The
deal with
date. Yeah.
WWE and then he showed
Right.
up and it was cool. I mean, it's great for him too. And it's funny because you
Yeah.
mentioned
No.
another bunch of guys that I just genuinely loved having on the show. I can't wait to get them back actually to returning to the ring is actually Waves and Curls because yeah, talk about two dudes who are like
Phenomenal.
yeah, and super positive. Like that's like the biggest one for me.
Yeah.
I was like, yo, Trayvon, like they give a lot of great information. They gave us a lot of great information just about themselves, and then Jalen coming through too. And like, yeah, I'm so glad that he's like healed up from his arm.
Yep.
But
You
it
got
was
the
like,
green
yo, it was
light.
like a big deal, man. I was like, yo, seeing these two dudes getting to talk to them and then just vibing with them. I actually just sent a video to Trayvon because my daughter was dancing and their song was her song that she's dancing to was their theme song. And so like I was just going crazy singing along with it.
That's incredible. I remember at Northeast Wrestling, Waves and Curls will tell you they got the biggest pop of the entire night. It was just out of nowhere. Uh I wanna say we were going through such a hard time in March, with like the whole pandemic, because around March was like when things were getting like really bad and we didn't know what was gonna happen. Everybody there, I felt like at the show were kind of on edge, but excited for the show too. But it just felt like a different atmosphere. When Waves and Curls came out, they were dancing, partying. They made every single person in that arena forget what was happening and going on in the world just for even 5 minutes. So shout out to Waves and Curls because we needed that. We needed that boost of energy that night.
Yeah, no, and like you said, like there's some mad popular guy or mad positive dudes that just like they you have no choice but to be excited when you see them
Right.
come out. So there is something
Exactly.
great about that team, man. I'm super hyped seeing them. And we were talking about one of their worst bumps, and like Trayvon was telling us about this one time he did a drop kick and like he messed up and one foot came up and hit him in the face while he did it. We've heard some pretty gnarly stories when it comes to like people taking bad bumps, man. But I was like, it was cool getting to talk to those guys, and
Yeah.
I can't wait. Like I have to reach out to them because I know I want them to come back to returning to the ring, and then by the time this episode comes out, they may have already been booked.
Never know. It's crazy too because they made their debut in Northeast Wrestling in December at Holiday Havoc when they wrestled Killanova and Corporation, was another team that made their debut. I don't want to botch their name, so I'm not gonna say it. But Christian Casanova is obviously like the leader of that incorporation, and uh, they wrestled them and they lost, and then they wrestled at Over the Top in January, and they got a good reaction. But bro, they wrestled in February against MSP, and MSP put them over, which I didn't see coming. Mainstay Posse. I love Mainstay Posse. Mainstay Posse is the big tag team in New England. For those who are listening, and they went over. Waves and Curls won the match, and I was like, wow, I did not see that. I love Waves and Curls, but MSP, I thought they were gonna get that W, but not. Waves and Curls went over that night.
Yeah, that's crazy, man, and that's cool. And see, like that's the cool thing too, 'cause, like we hear like different stories all the time about like you got to meet so many wrestlers, like just not even just like on the podcast, but in real life as well. Because like one of the people that we share as a guest, Gabby actually mentioned you, Gabby Ortiz,
Yeah,
your
I
name
love Gabby. I love
on
her.
the
She's such a
podcast.
sweetheart. She's such a sweetheart. I was so nervous when I met her for the first time because I was such a big fan and I had a little crush on her too. So it's so I was like cheesing hardcore when I finally met her. So, but she was such a sweetheart, so nice, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And actually, I think we were talking to her too, because like I said, we have returning to the ring coming out,
Right.
and she's coming on the show. She's actually so we have a different theme for like every month. So like January is kind of like, hey, this is our first show. We wanted to bring on Big Trouble Ben Bishop because he was our first now entering the ring. He's also our first returning to the ring. Um, February, we're focused on all Black wrestlers because obviously Black History Month.
Nice.
When March is all women's suffrage, so obviously we want to focus on women wrestlers. And Gabby actually said that she'd love to be the first guest, so I was like, boom, that's what we're doing. So
Perfect.
go with it.
That's incredible. I love how you guys, have like different topics for each month. For me, that it would be hard just to do all that, just because I want to get the wrestlers on, and I want to do what I have to do. It's but kudos to you guys for just doing topics each month, because I can't do that. My brain will be scrambled like with everything I go. I can't do all this. I'll probably miss the date or something, and it'd be too much.
Well, like, so for now into the ring, like this show right here, like all we want to do is just focus on like we just want to bring on wrestlers and just talk to them. We don't really worry about. But returning to the ring is so easy because like we do it every Wednesday. It's live, and then we just low key we can control that aspect of it. Like, all right, well, it's September, Hispanic Heritage Month. Bet we know who we're gonna put in here. October, well, it's Halloween. Let's do characters who are horror based characters, and we can bring them on
Yeah,
the show. Like, so we get like that crazy opportunity, but because it's controlled, like there's only 3 shows a week or 3 shows a month. It's easy. Like we can control that. Where like me, I just want to book everybody on the show. So I'm just like, all right, now entering the ring, let's bring you on the show. I'm
yeah.
gonna ask
It's
tons of
a lot.
questions and ask you for advice.
It's because when, like you said, when you do podcasts, you want to get everybody. Like me, I'm seeing stories of wrestlers who are gonna be on with other podcasts. I'm like, fuck, I just want to get her. I want to get her on already. I want to get them on already. Like, come on, like hurry up, like, cause I last night when we are listening to this on a Sunday, I finally, what was the day? Was it January 17th? I started finally messaging wrestlers. Hey, just like a big message, copy and paste that to everybody. When are you free? I'm free these days after this time. Let me know. And they
Yeah,
go, oh, I'm free. I'm free this day. I'm like, I'm looking to do it in February, not like that, like February, because I'm not ready for that quite. So
oh
so
no.
I'm like, I'm looking for February.
Oh no, not me. Like I legit have a calendar in my kitchen and my wife is like, I don't know why you have that calendar. You should just got a date. I was like, no, I have a planner in my phone that legit tells you who's everything, but I
Yeah.
want to see it too. So like the whole week is like written out of like different wrestlers coming on the show, and I'm
Gee,
like,
oh my God.
this is what I want to do. Like, and I genuinely love it, and I see
Yeah.
people come on, and like I do it for, okay, so I do this for like everybody. Like I want people to understand like we do these shows for fans, but more importantly, like I said, I do it for me because I want to listen to other
Yeah.
wrestlers tell me like advice that they would give like other wrestlers that are up and coming. So yeah, it is what it is, and that's kind
It's
of why I
like,
wanted to bring you on because I was like, yo, like you have this podcast. Our podcast is still relatively young. I know your guys' podcast is just a couple months older than ours, but at the same token, like you know here's like a great question. So like what advice would you give to people who want to start up a podcast in the wrestling community?
when you really want to start, if you think about starting up a podcast, just remember, I'm gonna be blunt. It's hard. It's a lot of work. I mean, yeah, it looks you're listening to other people talk to wrestlers, and you think, oh, I could do that. That's very easy. But you gotta remember, those people who are interviewing that wrestler has been doing it for years. You're just listening to a podcast that you go, oh, I could do that. And then when you have that person, you got your notes ready, you're behind that mic and talking to them, you're gonna freeze a lot the first time, and a lot of pausing, very awkward pausing is gonna come along in that podcast. But that's okay. It's your first podcast. Don't beat yourself up. The more podcasts you do, the better you are gonna be at it. I promise, because you're gonna catch yourself not saying you're gonna catch yourself not pausing midway, half through a sentence. You're gonna catch yourself just talking through the entire thing. But yeah, if you're thinking about doing a podcast, do it. Absolutely do it. If you love wrestling, if you whatever you want to talk about, do a podcast, because it is worth it. It's a lot of fun, and it's worth it. Just do it. Don't be afraid. Don't fuck the haters. Just do you.
Yo, I like that. Yeah, fuck them haters, man. Like, and people
Yeah.
and that's the crazy thing about like, and watching the discussion threads. You're right, because I'm also on the page too as well. So I watch everybody like say their piece, and I'm like, like I get it, man. You're gonna have those people who are and there's a lot of tribalism in wrestling, just in general.
Right.
So you're gonna get those AEW diehard fans, the New Japans, the WWE, the ROH. You get all those fans, and to see people be like, oh no, that product sucks because of this. I'm like, all right, well, that's your opinion.
Yeah.
I understand. I respect your opinion, but I just like, and I tell people all the time, I was like, I don't care. I just like wrestling. Like,
Right.
I'm not gonna respond to you. Like, you can send me some hate and be like, yo, your favorite wrestler is Rey Mysterio. What a loser. I'm like, all right, cool. Well, that's your opinion, but
Well,
in my humble opinion, I don't have to actually interact with you. So anybody else out there who likes Rey Mysterio, dale, let's get it.
honestly, like, yeah, that's like, who cares about people's opinions, man? Like, I'm gonna say too, if you want to join Nerds of Wrestling, go for it. Join it. Just do not be disrespectful. Don't curse. Don't call people names, and don't act like a child. It's not that hard. I had to remove this person because he called a friend of mine who I know a the c word that you called to disrespect women. That is she called him an idiot.
Hmm.
That's whatever. That's fine. But yo, he called her a cunt. I was like, oh hell no, he's gone. He's done. Blocked. He's gone. So it's stuff like that. Like, just don't call people names, bro. Like, if you're having any issues on the group, message me or Kelly, because we'll handle it. Kelly helps me run the pages too, so we'll handle it. Like, we got you, but like, just have fun on the group. Talk about wrestling. If you don't like someone's opinion, oh well. Don't go off on them, because if you curse at them, you're blocked.
Yeah.
That's it.
So, with that being said, though, man, that's kind of like our big roundabout questions. I know, like, this was one of my interviews I was looking forward to all week, because I was like, I know Justin, we just gonna have a low key
Hell
conversation.
yeah.
We talk like this off mic.
All the time, yeah, all the time. Like I always have you on my shows randomly. Like, hey, you want to join the podcast? Yeah, sure, let's do it.
Yeah, I felt so bad because, like we're recording this on the 18th of January.
Right.
You text me on the 17th and we're like, hey, do you want to come on the show? And like, I got done with training at like 2:30, and you had texted me earlier, and I was like, yo, I was in training all day.
It's all good. I felt bad because I was like messaging people like left and right, like, hey, you want to be on the show? Like, I need a fourth person. Some people were like, oh, it's too short notice. You should have told me like an hour, 2 hours ago. I'm like, you don't need. We're just talking about this pay-per-view. Like, you don't have to, be ready for 6 hours.
Yeah.
So
And it's funny to me because I'm like mad flexible. Like, I've had people tell me like, hey, I can't record at 7:00. Can we do it earlier? I'm like, how about 5? How about 6? How about 3? Like,
also, yeah, that's like another bit of advice that I would give people too is if you're scheduled to go at 7:00 and your guest can't go at 7 and it's 4:00 and they go, hey, can I go in an hour? Yes, I can.
Yeah.
Just for like me, I was sitting around all day doing nothing when I was interviewing all those wrestlers. There was times where I would message them or they message me like, hey, can we do this now? Like, so we don't. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. Like, I'm like, oh, gotta get up, like, shower, just clean up. Even though it's a phone call, I still want to look halfway presentable through the phone. I know it's silly, but still.
And that's the thing too. Like that's what I think that's like the best advice is be flexible because
Right.
you never know what's gonna pop up, and then like you can't just be like, nah, we're just stuck to this time. That's what we committed to. Like I've had people text me and just send me a message, be like, hey, like I can't do it on this day. Can we do it any other day? I'm like,
Right.
yeah, we do it every day. Like just tell me, just pick a day and let's run. Like it's easy. So
One funny story that I have is when I interviewed Richard Holiday from MLW, I messaged him on a Friday and it was like, hey, are you down to do a podcast? He's like, yeah, sure, let's do this day, which was next week. I'm like, ooh, can we do it the week after that? He goes, I mean, sure. Looking back, I'm like, I could have interviewed him that day and just uploaded it the week later. But this was the time I just started doing a podcast, so my podcast game was kind of off. Like, we gotta do it this day because I'm gonna tell people, hey, you're coming on this day because this is what we gotta do it this day. So, yeah. So
no, I had a
it's
dude
crazy.
had one interview that was like, hey, I can't do it at 7 p.m. on such and such date. What other days you have available? And I'm just like, you know what, just pick one. I'll be there. And they're like, what? I was like, yeah, just pick one. I really don't care. Like
There you
I will
go.
be down. And I tell everybody, I'm like, yo, like I record and I put in the emails like when I send them out, like, yo, we record at 7 p.m. Eastern. But if you send me an email back and say, hey, I can record on the 22nd at 2 p.m., guess where I'm gonna be the 22nd at 2 p.m.
Right there.
Right here.
See,
Roman,
it's-
actually, that's actually Roman Roselle. Like he's actually Roman Roselle was like one of my friends from college who's tearing it up in Ohio Valley right now. And I told him, I was like, yo, like I'm mad flexible, whatever you want to get done, let's get it done. And I told him all I needed was like 25 minutes. And sure enough, I mean, we put out 25 minutes. We recorded at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I had the episode downloaded, uploaded, edited, and ready to go and turned it around and had the date scheduled for it. And it had the clips cut. Like I was already ready to go. And I was
there
like,
you go.
yeah, I was like, it's so easy. And this is like, work with the wrestlers, try to help out the best that you can with them. Cause obviously they're going to start getting booked and getting put into crazy positions. So you
Right.
want to make sure to work with them. So yeah, I love
Exactly.
that advice, by the way.
And yeah, it's also very hard for me too because that advice is easier said than done. I remember I was also in a pandemic and laid off at the time, so I was available all day. Right now I only have like certain days available after 7, because I work and I'm going back to school. So this is going to be interesting to see how this season plays out. I'm hoping to do an episode every single week. But if I don't, it's just because I'm so busy with work and school. So, for those of you who do support Nerds of Wrestling and What's Up Wrestler, uh, be patient. I promise this season is going to be better than the last.
That. Well, with that being said, man, that's all of our hard hitting questions. So let's get in to the world famous 3 Count Podcast 10 count questions.
Woohoo! Let's do it.
So here's how it works, man. We're going to fire off a bunch of questions at you. And then, it's whatever first thought comes to your mind. So we're going to put the imaginary timer on the clock. Ding! And here we go. SmackDown or Raw?
SmackDown.
Favorite TV show?
The Office.
Oh, shout out to that one. Sonic or Mario?
Mario.
Favorite movie?
Oof, favorite movie. Oh God, I'm a big movie buff, I'm a huge movie buff, so that's very hard. Sandlot.
Okay, no, that's not a bad choice. I like that. PlayStation or Xbox?
PlayStation. Sony all day.
Favorite wrestler?
Ricochet.
Hey. Looney Tunes or Disney?
Disney.
Favorite actor?
Favorite actor? Oh Jesus. Ryan Reynolds.
Hey. Nominate someone to be on the podcast.
Nominated someone to be on the podcast. The Red Dog.
Oh yeah, we've already done that interview.
Oh God, I don't know. I have so many.
It's gonna be on our Patreon page. Just so you guys know. Yes, we have that interview. That's
Oh shit, nice. Nominated. I don't know, man. There's so many people I want to nominate. Harris Mandel.
Okay, there we go.
There
And
you
then
go.
last but not least, my favorite question to ask every single person that comes on this show. favorite curse word.
Fuck.
That's right. It's the only one to choose. I know a lot of people choose other words, but that's my favorite one too.
There's low key times where I like said it under my breath at work, and the kids called me. I was like, ooh.
It's funny because I feel like everybody who comes on here, I'm like, if you have not seen the history of the F word on YouTube yet, please go check it out. It's very important that you learn this word and understand its true meaning.
I never saw it. I gotta check it out.
Oh my god, man, it's one of my favorite things ever. You're gonna watch it, and then you're gonna send me a message, and you're gonna be like, yo, that was the greatest video I've ever seen in my life.
I'll watch it right after.
All right, so that is it for the 10 count question. So my only thing for you now is to let our listeners and our viewers know where they can find you.
I have so much social media platforms. If you really want to join, please join Nerds of Wrestling on Facebook, hosted by yours truly, Justin Del Rio. No, I am not related to Alberto, so don't ask. Yeah, but just find me on Nerds of Wrestling on Facebook, and if you want my other social media, just ask, and I got you.
Yeah, and then also you have What Up Wrestler on Anchor.
Yep, What's Up Wrestler is on Nerds. You can search it on all social media platforms. It's Nerds of Wrestling, and the episodes are What's Up Wrestler, and you can just find them on there.
And there you go. That's what we have. So with that being said, this is the 3 Count Podcast presents Now Entering the Ring. I'm your host, Clifford Red Dog Miller. And like I said, this is Now Entering the Ring with Nerds of Wrestling, Justin Del Rio. So you guys know what to do. Tune into the next episode and be there, or you already know what to do. Just stay right here and check out the next episode. Peace.
Peace out.
What's going on, 3 Count Nation? I'm Clifford Red Dog Miller with the catchphrase. But what I really want you to do right now, go to twitter.com, right? Go over there, find us at the 3count_pod. Give us a follow, give us a like, give us a comment. We want to talk to you guys. Go to IG at the 3 Count Pod. Give us a like, give us a follow, leave us a comment. We want to interact with you. Go to youtube.com, give us a subscribe, turn the bell on, turn the notifications, leave a comment. We want to talk to you. Go to anchor.fm/the 3 Count Podcast, and in there, you can leave us a message, and we will talk to you. Basically, what I'm trying to tell you is that we want to talk to you. We want to have fun with you guys, and we love listening to what you guys have to say. Also, one thing I need you to do for me, the 3 Count Podcast also has merchandise. Oh! At prowrestlingtees.com/the 3 Count Pod. Please go buy our t-shirts. We love you guys, and we hope you love us too. So show us some support, please.